This story was actually posted on the Japanese Internet Bulletin Board 2 channel in January 2004. A woman who calls herself Hasumi posted a detailed account of a strange experience that happened to her. We have reconstructed the story from her point of view and hope you enjoy it. Kisaragi Station. It was January 2004, roughly 20 years ago. A 23-year-old woman named Hasumi was working in an office building at Shin Station in Shizuoka Prefecture, Japan. The time was 22:55. She had just left the office to go home, exhausted from working overtime. The winter night was very cold and seemed to chill her tired body even more. She shrank back and walked quickly to the station she always used. When she arrived at the platform of the Shin Station, she checked the train time with a familiar hand. The last train would arrive at 23:10. It looks like it will be here soon. She sat down on the bench and looked up at the sky. There were no stars. The lights of the city had blotted out the stars. At that moment, she heard the sound of the train arriving. She got up and boarded the train. The car was mostly empty and there were 5 other passengers, but they all seemed to be asleep. She sat down and leaned her head against the window. The scenery outside drifted by in a blur. One by one the city lights went out and darkness enveloped her. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. The train's announcement overhead seemed so far away. The train ran for a while and she noticed something unusual. The train usually arrived at the destination station in about 5 minutes, but it showed no sign of stopping at all. The train had already been running for about 20 minutes. Feeling curious, Hasumi moved to the front of the train and decided to ask the station staff. However, the door to the station clerk's office did not open, and the windows were closed by blinds, so he could not see anything. Meanwhile, the train just kept running. It should not always go through the tunnel, but for some reason the train went into the tunnel. The train stopped at a certain station. Hasumi looked up and saw the name of the station. The station was called Kisaragi Station. It was an unfamiliar station name that she did not recognize. She looked around, but all the passengers on the train were asleep. The train was so quiet that it could have been described as unmanned. She felt a sense of bewilderment in her heart, but also a touch of fear. The time was 24:25. More than an hour had already passed since she boarded the train. She took out her cell phone and searched for Kisaragi Station on the internet, but the station did not even exist on the map. She asked about Kisaragi Station on an internet message board, but no one seemed to know anything about it. The station was surrounded by darkness. There were no houses or buildings, just mountains and grasslands. She groped her way through the area, but could find neither a pay phone nor a cab stand. She looked for the timetable to see if there was a train back, but there was nowhere to be found. Fear enveloped her as she realized how unusual the place she was standing was. She took one deep breath and stared ahead. Ahead of her was the only road that led to the train tracks. Where those tracks would take her, she herself did not know. But she had no other choice. Midnight. The time was 1:10. Hasumi decided to walk along the tracks back to the previous station. 10 minutes after she started walking, her father called her, explained the situation, and suggested she call the police. Hasumi asked the police for help, but they misunderstood it as a prank and did not take him seriously. Suddenly, she heard the sound of drums and bells in the distance. The sound instilled a deep fear in her heart. She kept walking, crying, hoping to reach some station. Before she knew it, she had been walking for an hour. The sound of drums and bells she had heard earlier seemed to be getting closer. Behind her, a voice said, "It's not safe to walk on the tracks." Thinking the station staff was there, she turned around to see an old man with one leg missing standing behind her. But the man disappeared. Seeing the phenomenon, Hasumi trembled and cried in fear. Her legs were already tired, she could no longer walk, and there was a tunnel in front of her. She did not dare to go through the abnormally dark tunnel. At the entrance to the tunnel, there was a sign that read Asanaki. She consulted an online bulletin board where she had posted the events leading up to this point. It turned out to be a tunnel that no one knew about. Standing at the entrance of the tunnel, Hasumi took a deep breath. As darkness enveloped her, a voice echoed in her head. "We have to keep going." The tunnel was covered all over by a cold, black wall. Only the sound of Hasumi's footsteps, lighting her way forward, broke the silence. The tracks led through the center of the tunnel to the other side. Crying, I continued walking, relying on the scant source of light from my cell phone. After walking for about 15 minutes, Hasumi was relieved to see the exit of the tunnel. A man seemed to be standing at the exit of the tunnel. He appeared to be in his 40s, thin and gaunt. He smiled at Hasumi and asked, "Are you alright?" he asked. His voice was soft and reassuring to Hasumi. The man offered to take her to the train station and offered to give her a ride in his car. There seemed to be accommodations near that station. Hasumi accepted the proposal and got into the man's car. However, as the car started moving, Hasumi realized that something was wrong. Instead of heading for the station, the car was going deeper and deeper into the mountains. Hasumi asked the man where they were going. The man replied that they were going to Hina Station. Hasumi noticed that this was obviously strange. Although the name of the station was familiar to him, Hina Station was too far from Shinhamamatsu Station. Moreover, Hasumi knew that there were no accommodations at Hina Station. After that, the man stopped answering any questions. The man seemed to be mumbling something in a very low voice. At 3:44 a.m., Hasumi stopped posting on the internet bulletin board, saying, "This is my last post because my cell phone will run out of charge." Where exactly is the Kisaragi Station where she got off? This experience became a topic of conversation throughout Japan and is still passed down as an urban legend.